Today I want to share with you 5 unsolved Oasis mysteries, from quite small ones right up to probably the biggest one of them all. And the first is this, mystery number 5. What happened to the Loch Lomond gig film, and why does it keep getting purged? Before their legendary shows at Nebworth, Oasis also did a massive appearance at Loch Lomond in Scotland on August 3rd, 1996. The whole gig was recorded, both audio and video, and it was reported apparently on Channel 4 at the time that Oasis planned to release it as a concert film. Now, I haven't been able to find any definite evidence for this, just anecdotal reports, but apparently the whole gig was actually streamed live on the Oasis website at the time. It may have been actually live, it may have been with a little bit of a delay, but this was in the very earliest days of any kind of streaming being possible at all. It seems that that streamed performance of Loch Lomond was captured and saved by someone, however, because every now and then someone uploads it, but every time they do, they then very quickly have the video shut down by Ignition, as you can see here on the Far Out magazine website. However, we do know that the full footage of that gig does exist out there somewhere, because someone keeps uploading it and then Ignition keep taking it down. But why does it keep getting taken down? It could be because Noel is waiting for the right time to clean that footage up and release it properly. Or it could be because he hates the footage, hates the gig, and doesn't want it out there. Only time will tell. And a big thank you to Kevin Richards for bringing this to my attention. On now to mystery number 4. What happened to John Squire's lead guitar on I Am the Walrus? A lot of people don't even realise that there is an Oasis version of I Am the Walrus with John Squire on lead guitar, but there is. 2, in fact. John Squire played lead guitar both nights live at Nebworth, not just on Champagne Supernova, but also on I Am the Walrus. And on this, the official Oasis Nebworth Blu-ray, his playing has been completely scrubbed from both tracks. You can visibly see him playing all throughout that song, but I've never heard one bit of the audio from that guitar work. Trying to solve this mystery, I even bought it again on DVD so that I could then get it onto my computer and extract the 5.1 audio. For those who don't know, that's surround sound. That's where the mix is split into 5 parts instead of just 2. You can then isolate each part and have a listen. John Squire's playing was nowhere to be found. I don't know for sure, but I think there is only one place remaining where that guitar part can still possibly be heard. It's on none of the cleaned up Nebworth features that I've heard. However, Nebworth also went out live on the radio worldwide, and thousands of people back in 1996 will have taped it as it went out live.
Since he's going out live to about 300 countries, I just had to say, fuck, shit, cunt, tit, bum, arsehole.
However, frustratingly, I've not been able to find one single version of this live broadcast of Nebworth at all online. But that version could be unique because it could be the only version out there at all with John Squire's playing on I Am the Walrus actually turned up. I would be pretty surprised if the live sound engineer actually pulled John Squire out of the mix. So, if you know of that radio broadcast being available anywhere online, please let me know in the comments below, because we might be able to hear what John Squire was actually playing over the huge extended live outro to I Am the Walrus. Because let's be honest, whatever it is, it looks pretty wild. Now on to mystery number 3. Will we ever get to hear the other lost Oasis albums? We are, at the time of filming, about 1 month away from finally, after 3 decades of waiting, getting one of the lost Oasis albums, the first version of Definitely Maybe, which was fully recorded by the band in the early 90s and then scrapped by the record company. At long last, That lost album is coming out, the Mono Valley and Sawmill sessions, on the 30th anniversary, definitely maybe. But did you know there are at least 4 other lost Oasis albums? Some of these it's actually questionable about whether they even actually exist at all. For example, the original Oasis version of Standing on the Shoulder of Giants, on which Bonehead and Guigsy played. Apparently they recorded all of their parts for the album before both band members left. Gem and Andy were then brought in and the parts were re-recorded. That means that somewhere in the vaults, if it still exists, there is a full 90s Oasis version of Standing on the Shoulder of Giants. There could be a complete alternative take of this album with just the original 90s lineup on the recording. This could be mixed in the style of 90s Oasis with the Owen Morris brickwalling. You could get some of the B-sides in there as well, particularly Helter Skelter, which was fully recorded by the original 90s Oasis. Imagine a Standing on the Shoulder of Giants bonus album, a kind of rethink, perhaps with Put Your Money Where Your Mouth Is and I Can See a Liar removed, and maybe 4 or more of the really good B-sides from that era included and remixed with the band members and the mixing style of 90s Oasis. How bloody awesome would that be? And speaking of rethinks, another lost album is the rethink version of Be Here Now that everybody wants, but for which Noel only ever finished one single track. For those who don't know, Be Here Now is the 3rd Oasis studio album, and it represents in every possible way the vast cocaine-fueled bloated monster that the band had become. Everything about it was massive, everything about how it was made and produced was just bonkers. This included recording 96 studio tracks for every single song on the album, many of which are over 7 minutes long. In 2016, Noel did a rethink of the lead single, Do You Know What I Mean?, in which he tidied it up and undid a few of the insane production decisions they made during the original recording, which included hiring a full orchestra, recording them in Air Studios, and then running that recording through a distorted guitar amp for the final mix. Noel's rethink idea was originally meant to apply to the whole album, and I think many of us were really excited, having waited a long time, to hear what that would sound like. Be Here Now was a completely unique, one-off, weird and wonderful creation, and fans have been calling for a new version of that one album more so than any other for a very long time. Sadly, however, Noel only completed that one track and then gave up when he got to My Big Mouth. The calls for that full rethink version have never really gone away, however, and hopes remain high that come the 30th anniversary of Be Here Now, we may finally get to hear the completed rethink album. Another lost album is the Amorphous Androgynous album, which I think technically actually kind of covers the last year of Oasis and the first few years of High Flying Birds. Both Noel and Amorphous Androgynous have said all kinds of conflicting things about the making of this apparent psychedelic masterpiece. And apparently both parties also still have the completed album, which is also apparently great, but still has yet to be released. Once again, only time will tell, but I for one would love to hear that thing finished, mixed, mastered and properly released. And while there still actually may be more, the other lost Oasis album that I'm aware of is the Death in Vegas sessions for Don't Believe the Truth. Apparently this is yet another complete Oasis album that was recorded and then never released. Here's an interview from Higher Frequency that gives a little insight into what it was and what it sounded like. The journalist asked Death in Vegas, "What happened with Oasis? You were going to be producing their recent album, then it didn't happen. Was that a difficult process to go through?" Death in Vegas responded, "No, not at all. It got a bit difficult at the end, but that's it. We recorded the whole album, spent a month doing it. I wanted to make something that was really out there, that would take the music to a different psychedelic level. I'm not talking about taking them electronic or anything like that. We were trying to make it more of a studio album along the lines of what George Martin used to do on Sgt. Pepper's." So those are the 5 lost Oasis albums that I'm aware of. But there may be more, so let me know in the comments down below if I've missed anything out. And who knows, perhaps on the 30th anniversary of Standing on the Shoulder of Giants and the 30th anniversary of Don't Believe the Truth, we may get some of these lost moments. But now it's time to move on to item number 2 on this list, the missing history of the Be Here Now years, according to Oasis. I've already talked a little bit about how large Be Here Now looms in Oasis history, and also how, for some reason, it's one of the most neglected eras in retrospect. This is Supersonic, pretty much the best Oasis documentary ever made. It tells the story of the band from their formation right the way up to Nebworth. There's several other really good documentaries covering other eras of the band. There's this one called Lord Don't Slow Me Down, which was a bit weird. There's also a feature called Gold and Silver and Sunshine that covers the making of the last Oasis album. But there's one massive yawning gap in Oasis history, and it's them at their biggest, maddest and most wild. And most interesting. Right at the very top, when all the crazy reached its apex.
That tour that we did to promote that album is the best time I've ever had on a tour, even though it was chaos. To tour as the biggest band in the world is fucking something else. And, you know, to go to every single airport in the world and have 500 TV cameras waiting for you. Although at the time you don't realise it, it's an amazing thing, do you know what I mean?
Are we ever going to get the full behind-the-scenes Be Here Now documentary that everyone seems to want? When Supersonic came out, it told so many brilliant, unheard stories and filled in so much detail about those early years. But it stopped right before the most mysterious and, in my opinion, most interesting time, Be Here Now. The making of that album was chaos, getting thrown out of Abbey Road studios, having to guard against press photographers hiding in the bushes out in the countryside. Liam Gallagher apparently saw a UFO while making that album. The band also spent the best part of a year on tour, and it was the biggest, maddest thing they ever did. So much hilarious, wild, outlandish stuff occurred during that trip all around the world, including their absolutely chaotic stint in Australia and New Zealand. It was also during this era that Noel Gallagher got hospitalised after staying awake on cocaine for 3 days and nights in a row. There is so much that could be put together about the Be Here Now era, effectively part 2 to this. This was only really part 1 of the Oasis story in the 90s. We need part 2. There must be so many untold stories and brilliant hidden gems from that time. But, sadly, thus far it's just been radio silence from the Oasis camp. But let's take this one step further. We've talked about the completed Be Here Now Rethink album. We've talked about Supersonic Part 2, covering the making of Be Here Now, its release, and the world tour. The real icing on the cake for this fantasy mega bundle would be the fully remastered legendary G-Mex gig, which was, in my opinion, just one of the best concerts they ever did. And on that point, interestingly, I have definitely seen the odd clip on official Oasis channels of that gig that looks like it's already being remastered. I don't know, that's just what it looks like to me. The sound at the G-Mex was in a different league to Nebworth, and those gigs were fully filmed and professionally recorded. So who knows, not long to wait now to the Be Here Now 30th anniversary. And so finally, we come on to the last and greatest Oasis unsolved mystery. What actually happened to get drummer Alan White fired? Alan White took over from Tony McCarroll on the drums after Some Might Say was released. He played on Morning Glory, Be Here Now, Giants and Heathen Chemistry, after which he left. However, there's never really been any properly satisfactory explanation as to why he left or was fired. Some interviews have suggested he wasn't fired, but left of his own free will. Elsewhere, Noel apparently said he was fired because he stayed on holiday instead of attending a band meeting. There were other different reports that Alan objected to drum loops being used in the band's recordings. And there's another report where Liam claims he wanted him out because of some fight. And let's be honest, who knows? It could be all or none of those things. The bottom line is a satisfactory explanation has never been given, not by the Oasis camp or the White camp. I must have been asked for an explanation of Alan White's departure hundreds and hundreds of times by different people from all around the world. But the truth is, my features are largely put together from journalistic information that's already out there in the press or in interviews or in books. And because there is just so little information out there when it comes to this, and because so much of what is out there seems to tell a completely different, contradictory story every time, I simply have no answers. Perhaps the fact that there are so many conflicting stories was actually an intentional strategy. The simple truth is, until someone who was actually there provides us with some reliable data, this one really might remain a mystery forever. But whatever the reason, if the day comes when Oasis do finally sort it out and get back on stage at Nebworth to take their record back from Robbie Williams, I personally would be pretty disappointed if Alan White wasn't behind the kit. Let me know down in the comments if there are any more Oasis mysteries that you think I might have missed. Thanks so much for watching, and as always, I'll see you next time.